Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game from round 7 of this year's Menorca Open tournament. It's a Bulgarian Grandmaster Momchil Petkov. He's currently 20 years old, became a Grandmaster at the age of 17. And although I couldn't find any additional info on the gentleman, I did find one interview where he says that he was taught chess by his grandmother. And he faces the legend, Vasyl Ivanchuk, who's been having an incredible tournament. He's currently the leader. He started with 5 out of 5. Then in round 6, he got a draw against Chinese Grandmaster Shangli Lu, and now he faces Momchil here. And also Vasyl is on a 24-game unbeaten streak, ranging now 3 tournaments. So yeah, let's check it out and see what happened here. It's a really complicated game. We're gonna dive into some crazy lines, and what I love most about this game is that both of them really just wanted to fight. They wanted to beat each other, and Momchil, even though he's facing a legend, doesn't really matter that he's higher rated than him, but anyone facing Vasyl knows that he's either in for a weird game or a fight for his life. Chooses to play for the win. He wants to take him down. So let's see what happened. Momchil with white opens with pawn to d4. We have d5 by Vasyl, knight f3, knight to f6, and c4. We have d captures on c4, going for the queen's gambit accepted, knight to c3, and now a6 and e6 are the 2 most popular lines. Pawn to c6 is the 3rd most popular, which is what Vasyl goes for, and he's preparing pawn to b5. So okay, he gives white the center. Momchil takes it with e4, b5, and now queen to c2. Sorry about that. And probably a lot of you, if you play the Queen's Gambit accepted or play against it, have had this position quite a few times. And many times black will make a mistake of advancing the pawn a bit too far, which is of course not what happened in this game, as this is Vasyl Ivanchuk, not your uncle playing. But just to give you a quick example of why it would be terrible, for example, queen a5 looks like black is already about to win the game, but all of a sudden knight d2, and if pawn to c3, you can simply capture and play knight to c4. And now you have to bring the queen back. White continues nicely developing. You can recapture the pawn on c3 at any time. And if black is, a little bit weird, you can even win the queen straight out of the opening, basically. But okay, after queen c2, Vasyl goes for what is usually played, pawn to e6, and now bishop to e2 and bishop to g5 are played almost exclusively here. Pawn to b3, the move that Momchil plays, has never been played before. It is now, as of move 7, that we have a completely new game, and you might be thinking, okay, maybe Momchil mixed up the move order. But looking at the time on the clock, he's playing faster than Vasyl. I think this is some deep preparation where he tries to exploit probably Vasyl never encountering this on the board. And okay, b3, and Vasyl plays c captures on b3. He invests some time. You can see that he spent 7 minutes deciding on this capture. A captures, and now knight to a6. And this is, by the engine, the best possible way to play. Capturing and then playing knight to c6. You want to come to b4, put pressure on the queen, and just advance that pawn to a6, having a very, very solid pawn structure on the queen side. We have bishop to e2, knight to b4, and queen to b1. As the queen was hanging, so you're nicely controlling the knight from b1. Pawn to a6, and castles kingside. We have bishop to b7 by Vasyl, and now, while you could continue developing pieces, Momchil goes for e5 right away. And you can see that he's still playing fairly quickly, and he sort of manages to trick Vasyl. Probably knight coming to d5 is the best way to play. Vasyl goes knight to d7. He wants to have support for the advancement of the c-pawn, and now this very nice centralizing queen to e4 move, which stops pawn to c5. So okay, queen to c7, now preparing pawn to c5, and now comes knight to g5. And okay, he did burn a little bit of time. He's already down to 55 minutes, but he's threatening something absolutely disgusting. Now, Vasyl spent 22 minutes on his next move, because the real question is, and that is always the question when the knight comes to g5, can we just kick it away? Is this white just being weird, or is there an actual threat behind knight to g5? Well, I'm gonna show it to you Vasyl spent 22 minutes calculating this, which means that it would take you and me, forever. So best just show it. If pawn to h6, the idea, of course, is knight captures on f7. But that's not the hard part you have to calculate. The hard part is that after king captures and bishop to h5 check, where g6 is, of course, impossible, king g8, the only move that doesn't lose the game, queen to g6. Now you have to be a little bit careful because there's also the threat of a quick repetition here, amongst other things. So you have to play rook h7, and now after queen captures on e6 check, king to h8, and bishop to g6, you will grab the rook for the price of 2 pieces. But then, again, only one move that doesn't lose for black, that is pawn to c5, and now knight captures on b5, where you have to be extremely careful. It's best just play queen to c6 and offer a queen trade, because if you capture the knight, then rook captures on a8, bishop captures on a8, and now queen to e8, going after the bishop. And after the bishop moves, now you play rook to e1 and you start advancing the e-pawn. And here white is a little bit better, actually, because, well, the black king is terrible, the bishop is bad, the rook is, well, look at it. And it's not lost, but it would be very, very hard in a practical game to survive this. So after knight to g5, Vasyl said, after 22 minutes of deep consideration, for the position, said, yeah, okay, just bishop to e7, I'm not playing that. And now, okay, both of them spent quite a lot of time deciding whether it's worth it to go h6. And now you have to find the move. Vasyl just declined your challenge. What do you play? Well, the best would be to keep the queen on e4. It looks a little bit dangerous because that bishop is on b7 and c5 is being threatened. But actually, you should play something like rook to d1 here. And now the point is that if c5 is never a threat due to knight captures on b5. And then the knight comes to d6, or if you capture, then even rook captures, bishop captures, white is just straight out winning. So the queen definitely should have remained centralized. But Momchil played queen to g4, and now Vasyl just gets a free pawn to c5. And when you free up your light square bishop like this, you can no longer be worse. If anything, black is now even better. We have d captures on c5, queen captures, knight g to e4, and here Vasyl even gives up his strong light square bishop. The bishop captures, knight captures, and now the question is, can Vasyl capture on e5? That is the question. And can he capture with the queen, or should he capture with the knight, as the black queen is also hanging? So the question really is whether or not we capture with the queen. And it's a really, really long line that it's very difficult to calculate, and Vasyl calculates it. Would you capture on e5? That is the question, because the threat, of course, is just bishop to f4. And then, of course, if you capture the knight, then bishop to f3 would also hang the rook on a8. So can you capture it? Even, this actually, deserves a little bit of your attention. Maybe if you guys even want to pause the video. If not, Vasyl captured it. He played queen captures on e5, and he played it instantly. You can see by the situation on the clock. He even gained time, which means that he calculated it probably way back then when he was calculating whether to play h6 or bishop to e7, and it was, calculated within those 22 minutes. So here, bishop to f4. Okay, can you capture the knight? Obviously not, as bishop to f3 would win the rook. Well, that is exactly what Vasyl calculated during those 22 minutes, I believe, and he played queen captures knight. As you can see, still not burning any time. Bishop to f3, and now queen to d4. And now, probably, you guys can now see what Vasyl saw when, he was considering bishop to e7 or pawn to h6. Here, if you capture on a8, do you see what Vasyl had in mind? Pretty sure you do. And okay, now it's pretty easy to see pawn to g5, but Vasyl saw it way back, 15 moves ago. And you just lose a bishop. That's it. So after queen to d4, rook f to d1 was played, and now knight to d3. And this knight to d3 will be haunting Momchil for the rest of the game. Remember, knight to d3. We have bishop captures on a8, and now queen captures on f2. There was no other way you could possibly play this. King to h1, and now knight captures on f4, seemingly, just the up material, but now comes rook to f1. And again, there is only one way for Vasyl to win the game, but I'm pretty sure you guys see it now, even though Vasyl saw it way back then when he was calculating, for those 22 minutes. But just for fun, have at it. So the move is knight to d3. Of course, making rook captures on f2 impossible, as then just captures with check, knight captures queen, and black would be up, well, just 2 knights, which is just crazy. So after knight to d3, Momchil played bishop to c6, saying, okay, you can't really castle or anything, as the knight here would hang. Even though castling, believe it or not, is the top move recommended by the engine, even after bishop captures on d7, the position is still very much winning. For example, castles, bishop captures, queen to b6, now threatening knight to f2 check. There is just no way out of this. It's good of a position for black. So after bishop to c6, Vasyl played bishop to c5. He has a different idea, also involving this diagonal, and the idea is that if white is not careful, let's say white plays rook a to d1, attacks the knight, if the knight moves, then we capture on d7, all of a sudden Vasyl sacrifices the queen, and knight f2 is a nice smothered mate. So after bishop to c5, of course Momchil figured this out, bishop captures on d7 is played, king captures, and now queen to d1. Stopping the smothered mate, as now sacrificing the queen, you cannot deliver the smothered mate with the knight, as the knight is pinned on the d file. So queen to d4. It's the only winning move for Vasyl, but not a, particularly difficult one to spot, as both the queen and the knight are hanging. Also, the knight is pinned. So by moving the queen, you unpin the knight. Everything is working well for you. Rook a2, hoping for rook to d2. And now Vasyl just gets the king out of the d file. Queen to f3, and now pawn to f5, as queen captures on f7 is a threat, so pawn to f5. We have pawn to b4, and look at the situation on the clock. Both are below 1 minute. So while capturing the pawn is definitely a possibility, there's no downside to this. Vasyl already has all of the calculations in his mind, and while the bishop is on this diagonal, so he doesn't want to, burn through these 44 seconds calculating different variations. So he just keeps the bishop on the diagonal. Rook to e2 now. With some maybe threats of queen captures on f5, although it's very hard to say. Pawn to g6, we have queen to c6, now putting pressure on the bishop, also maybe some back rank, not back rank, queen b7 check is an idea, and the Vasyl goes knight to e5, attacks the queen, queen b7 check, and king to f6, and we have rook f to e1. Doubling up on the e file, and now Vasyl plays rook to d8. The threat here, and I think it's a theme that goes throughout the entire game, is that if you capture the knight now, which seems like a good idea, you trade 2 rooks for a queen and the knight, the problem is you have back rank issues, so just queen captures, and after rook captures, just rook to d1 check, and you get checkmated. That is the problem. So after rook to d8, queen captures on h7 was played, and now Vasyl should just play rook to c8, and just have a tremendous rook ready to go down that c file, but he played rook to d5. He decided to defend the knight via the d5 square, which allows Momchil to trade it down and basically get a playable, maybe even drawable position. But he has to play rook captures on e5. Pretty much right away, or maybe start with queen to h8, but rook captures on e5 is definitely possible here, because after rook captures there's queen to h8 check. The king has no way of guarding that rook, and after the king moves you will just capture, and after queen captures, for example rook captures, you have rook versus a bishop, for example king to d6, rook to e1, pawn to a5, let's say rook d1 check, king to c6, you trade here, and it's 4 pawns versus 2, bishop versus rook. However, there is that passed b pawn, the white king is very far away, so it would be Vasyl playing for the win here, all very hard to draw, but it was the only way. There is another way, but you have to be, engine level precise, and that is, okay, pawn to h3, and Vasyl plays bishop to d8. The idea is that he wants once the white queen starts checking, he wants to get over there, maybe block with the bishop, and get his king to safety. We have queen to h8 with check, king to f7, and now queen to h7 with check, king to e8. And this is the position. You have 38 seconds on the clock, and you need to survive. And the only way to survive, I'm not going to tell you, have at it. You have to answer now. What is the only way for white to survive? Believe it or not, it's not rook captures on e5. It's actually queen to g7. Rook captures on e5 would make little sense now, because after queen to h8 with check, king to d7, and you capture here. Now after queen captures, rook captures on e5, bishop to e7, you have problems, as you're also going to lose the b pawn. There is no rook to d5, rook to e4, and then would just be too many pawns against that white rook. So after king to e8, the only way to survive is king to g7, but Momchil did not find it. Now the idea is that after bishop to e7, queen to g8 check, king to d7, the bishop moved out of the back ring, and you have this tempo move rook to c2, threatening queen to c8. So after bishop to d8, now continue checking, queen to g7 check, you control the c file. If king comes to d6, you can do pretty much whatever, but you will be able to continuously check the black king. However, after king e8, queen to g8 check was played with so little time on the clock. You can see the move was played with 2 seconds. Momchil is now up to 32 seconds because you get 30 seconds increment. Now the black king escapes. King to d7, and now rook to c2 is pointless as there is no queen to c8 threat. So queen to g7 with check, bishop to e7. So Vasyl's idea of bishop to d8 actually works now that he brings the bishop to e7. Both of them missed that elusive queen to g7 idea. We have queen to g8, bishop captures on b4, now just creating 2 connected pass pawns, rook to c1 and rook to c5. Now Vasyl to win just needs to trade down, that's pretty much it. King to g7, we have king to c6 and rook back to g1. King to b6 and now queen to g8. We have queen to d6 guarding the e6 pawn and the knight, and queen to a8, trying to check the black king from behind, but you know, pawn to a5, not a worry in the world. The queen is guarding d8, the queen is guarding b8. We have rook to b1, hoping for some tricks maybe, but it doesn't work. Vasyl, sorry, not rook to b2, rook to b1, and Vasyl just played knight to c6, and he was in this position on move 47 that Bulgarian Grandmaster Momchil Petkov resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Now the knight even helps out. There really are no checks here with the white queen. You can even move your queen, and there's no move you can make with the white. For example, you could try queen to h8 to get the queen into the game. Rook d5. Now threatening rook to d1 check, which would force trades, and then white would just be out of material to fight. And if queen to a1, stopping that rook to d1 check, then you have this beautiful pawn to a4 move, as now the a4 pawn can move. The bishop is nicely defended by the queen and by the knight, and that's pretty much it. Nothing to play. Rook e to b2, bishop c3, whatever you play gets blown out of the water, so to say. So after knight to c6, Vasyl wins, and he not only wins the game, but is still leading the tournament. Shangli Lu, who drew against Vasyl in the previous round, I believe is shared second with Nihal Sarin. Nihal won all of his games except the one he lost to Vasyl. So Vasyl just playing incredible chess, unbeaten this tournament, unbeaten in the last 3 tournaments. Like I said, he's on a 25-game unbeaten streak. He is the Vasyl of old. So to say. So yeah, we'll see what happens. Does Vasyl have it in him, you know, at this age to, you know, keep playing at this level, you know, for the entire tournament? We'll see. He's been doing so for weeks now, as he's the most active player in the world. You know, maybe Bogdan Lalic plays more games than him, but yeah, he's definitely up there. So yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Beautiful stuff by Vasyl, as usual. Big congratulations to Momchil for also, you know, just trying to take down the legend, not, you know, hoping to get a quick draw or anything. That, you know, variation where he tried to go for it, that Vasyl so politely declined with bishop to e7 was beautiful. So, you know, too bad it didn't get to that. But yeah, what are you going to do? You know, you play to win. You have to play to win them all if you want to be one of the best. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank the Animated Chemist, Crash BPS1, Magician Chess, Sandal Nolast, and Ivanchuk for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.